I'd like to welcome everyone to today's symposium entitled Aging Research at Yale, Past, Present, and Future. We have a very exciting afternoon planned. I'm Tom Gill, and I direct the Claude D. Pepper Older Americans Independence Center at Yale, which is sponsoring today's symposium. I'd like to express my gratitude to several persons who have worked tirelessly to plan and organize today's activities, including Denise Acampora, Eliza Kiwick, and Robin Bonanno in geriatrics, Carrie Falvey, Mary Hu and Michael Fizzuza in the Dean's Office, Karen Pert in Public Affairs and Communication, Susanna Samaji in the Development Office, and the entire leadership of the Pepper Center. Before I make my first introduction, I'd like to briefly review a few housekeeping items. First, there will be a 10-minute break about halfway through the program at 4:30. The restroom is on the mezzanine level with access either through the elevator from the ground floor up or through the back door at the top of the room. Staff members from the Program on Aging will be in the aisles to assist you if needed. Second, we've distributed index cards, perhaps as you are walking into the room, as a mechanism to solicit questions for our panel discussion, which will take place at the end of the program. If you'd like to ask a question, please jot it down on the index card during the talks, and our staff will collect the cards at the end of each row following the talks. If you would like to direct your question to one of our speakers, please indicate that on the index card. Finally, for those who have cell phones, if we ask you just to put them on vibrate mode, if you wouldn't mind, so we don't disturb our speakers. I'd now like to introduce the Dean of Yale School of Medicine, Dr. Robert Alpern. Dr. Alpern is a nephrologist, otherwise known as a kidney expert. Before assuming his current position in 2004, Dr. Alpern was on the faculty at University of California, San Francisco, and University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, where he served as dean from 1998 to 2004. Dr. Alpern has been an outstanding dean and leader, and we are fortunate that he was able to join us for today's symposium. Dr. Alpern.
It's a real pleasure to be here today to share this celebration. When I was in Dallas, one of the things we wanted to do was to build a geriatrics program, and we realized how difficult it was going to be, and then I realized the easiest way to do it was to move to Yale. So this is the Claude D. Pepper Older Americans Independence Center is really one of the jewels of Yale University, and clearly I think we have a geriatrics division that's the size of many departments at Yale, actually larger than many departments at Yale. So the program in aging was established in 1991, and we were designated as a Pepper Center in 1992. Tom just renewed, I think, for the 5th cycle, following Mary, the NIH Center. And we've heard that the center programs are alive and well at the NIH, so there should be many more cycles. The center's purpose that was shown to me is to enhance health, well-being, and independence of older Americans. And I think that that's really speaks to what geriatrics is about, really understanding that it's not just keeping people alive, but there's a lot more to life, and to try and keep people really healthy and able to take care of themselves. And so the center has been incredible, and the numbers reported to me, they have 50 investigators and more than 70 research projects. The ultimate goal is that to match longevity with the quality of life. And I think this is going to be one of the big forefronts for medicine in the next 50 years because we're getting really good at beating down heart disease. We're getting better and better at cancer. And people are just going to keep living longer and longer. I think one of the major economic problems that this country is going to face is if people live to 130, can they afford for them to stop working at 65? And I think it actually, we are getting to this point where we need to stay strong, not just alive, for longer, for it to all work. And so that's what this center's about. And so I do want to acknowledge the support of the NIH. We're delighted that Richard Hodis is here today from the National Institute of Aging. He's a Yale College graduate, so he has his ties here, although he did wander up to Boston for medical school. But we do appreciate their support. And as I said, the funds that have come here have really allowed the center to support investigators all across Yale University. I think there's like total funding of $33 million that have come through the center with an estimate that it's led to about $200 million in grant funding. And so I think it's an incredible success and one of the real unique strengths of Yale University. So that's the end of my comments. And now I'm pleased to introduce the next speaker. So when they gave me the points that I was supposed to cover today, they told me that, well, you need to know that what Rosa DeLauro is going to speak about so that you don't say the same thing she's going to say. And I said, no, it's no problem because I'm going first. So it's my pleasure, though, to introduce to you a dear friend and actually a friend of everyone in this room because of her support for what we all try to do. Rosa was elected to the House of Representatives in 1990, a year before the program in aging was started. She is the ranking member on the Labor, Health, Human Services, and Education Appropriations Committee, and she can share that with you. She serves on a subcommittee responsible for the FDA. The Science Coalition recognized her as the 2012 Champion of Science. And Rosa is a spirited, relentless, and inspiring leader and advocate for science. And I can tell you that as a dean, I'm continuously on conference calls where other deans and people tell me, you need to speak to your congressperson and tell them to support the NIH. And I always tell them that would be a waste of time for me here because Rosa is more committed to the NIH than I am. Rosa, please.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was very kind to refer to me as spirited. A number of my colleagues would just say, you know, downright abrasive and aggressive is what they would say about me. But I am honored, so honored to be here with all of you today. You know, still I'm a townie, as so many of you know, born and raised in the city of New Haven. And the Yale buildings are still somewhat intimidating, you know, when you come into them. But it's wonderful to see such a crowd here this afternoon on such an incredibly important topic and so many distinguished folks who are here and who are going to speak with you. What work that is done at the Claude Pepper Center here is, and it's gone on for 20 years. And it is about saving lives, it's about pushing the frontiers of knowledge, and it's about improving the quality of life for older Americans. And that is what you said, Dean. It is about the quality of life because we have figured out how to have people live longer. But what is happening to them in those those years, and how is it going? What are their lives are about? And so that whatever their cognition is, that they senses that their life is still filled with some meaning, and what they are doing, and that's critically important to me. And I'll explain that in a moment to you. So that the work at Yale is complemented by the work at 15 other Pepper research centers across the country, due to a foundation, and I wanted to mention this, laid by an incredible human being, and that was Senator and Representative Claude Pepper. He served in both capacities. And I would just get into a pattern where we always mention the Senate first rather than the House. And the Senate is dysfunctional, and so is the House is dysfunctional these days. But in any case, he was a man, really, someone that after my own heart. And I obviously, I was in New Jersey doing the Mondale-Ferraro campaign when 1984, and Claude Pepper came in to do some helping out. So I never did. It was an admiration from afar of what this man was all about. As a senator, he advocated for national health care, equal pay for equal work for women, cancer and heart disease research programs, and a minimum wage. He also co-authored the legislation that established the National Cancer Institute, the first of the many National Institutes of Health institutes at the NIH. In his later years, he served in the U.S. House as chairman of the Select Committee on Aging and was known as the, quote, spokesperson for the elderly, and indeed an eloquent spokesperson for the elderly, so that the aging research centers could not have been named for a better advocate for the elderly. And here at the Yale Pepper Center, over 1,000 manuscripts have been published based on work supported by the center over the last 20 years. And over the last 10 years, the center has awarded over $200 million in research grants and career development awards to scientists and scholars who are pushing at aging research across a number of disciplines, from immunology to genetics, psychology to physical therapy, cardiology to nursing. And with that in mind, I would like to acknowledge and say thank you to the speakers who are devoting their time this afternoon to this symposium, some of the most accomplished leaders in the field. Among them, Dr. Mary Tinetti, the MacArthur Genius Grant winner, who led the founding of the Pepper Center in 1992, the first investigator to identify that older adults at risk for falling and injury could be identified. And while Dr. Tinetti has all of those wonderful credentials, I would just say personally to her that her care of my 99-year-old mother is at the top of that list. And my mother is not easy to care for, let me tell you. And Dr. Tinetti would concur in that effort. Dr. Stephen Strittmatter. His lab is conducting important work in combating Alzheimer's, repairing nerves after traumatic spinal cord injury. And I was honored to tour the lab and see the work that was being done by him and by others, and that we did it in 2011. And again, that was at a period of time when we were experiencing what was being a reduction in funding for research. And we were trying to make the case of how backward that is. And we'll talk a little bit about that as well today of what's going on. Dr. Nicholas Christakis, director of Yale's Human Nature Lab, conducted pioneering research into health social networks, has been called one of the most influential thinkers in the world by both Time and Foreign Policy. Dr. Sandy Chang, whose lab at Yale conducts cutting-edge research into, now, I'm not a scientist, so is it telomeres? Huh? I don't say, always Italian, whenever I look at one of these words. In any case, the protein DNA complexes that caps the chromosomes, how mutations in these binding proteins can lead to increased risk of cancer. I'm going to use my best baseball analogy here, and if you're a Yankee fan, you'll understand this. This is Murderer's Row of talent here, an expert in aging research. And to Dr. Hodis at the National Institute of Aging, thank you for the great work that's being done there. NIA, the principal federal funding agency for aging research here at Yale, and all across America. Like NIH funding in so many other areas of research, NIA is driving innovation, advances, discoveries that improve the mental and physical health of older Americans. They're responsible for leading the national research effort to combat Alzheimer's through effective early interventions and novel drug treatments. So we say thank you to you. Thank you for being here and for your great leadership. Finally, I would personally like to recognize all of the doctors, the nurses, the scholars, the researchers here today. You work day in and day out in labs, in clinics, in nursing homes, and in hospitals to push the edge of the envelope, to push the frontiers of knowledge, to care for our seniors, and to save lives. I'm in awe. I am in awe always of what you do. So many of you know that I am a survivor of ovarian cancer. And I was so fortunate that my cancer was discovered in stage 1. And I was in treatment for several months. I'm cancer-free for 27 years. And I am here today because of the grace of God and biomedical research and the great work that you do here. And so I have, again, so much respect for what you are able to do to make a difference in people's lives. And I believe that all medical research is important. But the aging research conducted and supported here at the center is particularly vital at this moment when we are not only experiencing the graying of America, but more and more Americans, as we said, are living longer than ever. And it will be on Christmas Eve that my mother will be 100 years old. And that, to me, is, I'm trying to wrap myself around the fact that my mother is 100 years old, in addition to which I have to plan a party or do something to acknowledge this effort. But it's so incredible. And I might add that she is out every day. I have caregivers, because I'm in Washington. I've people who come in from 7 to 7 at night, and then from 7 to 7 in the morning, and so forth. And she goes out every day and get her hair done every day. And last night she sat with me as I had the great honor of being inducted into the Connecticut Women's Hall of Fame. And we had the video up there. And does she get it all? No. But she gets enough of it so that there, again, is some value, her own sense of value, whatever she can understand today and what her life is about. And according to the Administration on Aging, seniors make up about 1 out of every 8 Americans. And by 2030, that number will be 1 in 5. Then only 17 years from now, there will be over 72 million seniors in our nation, over twice as many as in 2000. As a community and as a country, we need to be ready for this surge in seniors as the baby boom grows older. And oftentimes, you know, my mom, she retired in her 80s from the New Haven Board of Aldermen. And for a number of years after that, she would say to me, and I hear this in senior centers because I get to visit a lot of these places all of the time. You know, these years of after, you know, retirement, the golden years, presumably the golden years where not only with my mother, but I've heard so many other seniors describe them as the lead years. As the lead years. Because of, you know, and they're mostly women. Women live longer than men live. Sorry, guys, what can I tell you? But we do. And we are more in danger of being in poverty because of wages and because of the retirement security and pensions. And because in and out of the workforce, there's not that much there in Social Security at the end of the line. So the highest demographic for people in poverty today are women who are over the age of 65 or 70 years old. So we need to be about that quality of life, which is what you do. We need the research that you in this room undertake daily. We need to improve care. We need to inform our policies, support the work that you do. We have to support the investments that make all of this groundbreaking research that you do possible. And this is something that I don't say in a self-serving way. I fight for every day. I am not a scientist. Some of the words I can't pronounce. I'm not. I am a budget appropriator. But I believe in the fundamental value of research and where it can take us and where it has taken us. I am the senior Democrat on the subcommittee that oversees the NIA and the NIH funding. And I know that the most important thing that I can do is to help Americans live longer, but to live healthier lives is to fight for those investments in your hard work. And as much as 85% of Yale's federal research portfolio is funded by the National Institutes of Health. I will tell you this juncture just for a second, that we have serious difficulty with the appropriations process today, where it plays out, this dysfunction that is occurring in Washington plays out in this committee. As Dr. Hodges knows, this was a committee where you had the most and the broadest based bipartisan support of any of the committees of the federal government, and particularly in the area of research, because we had a sense none of us are scientists. None of us are doctors or researchers, but we have a sense that we had a responsibility to appropriate resources and not earmark them for a specific purpose, but say, here is the money. You place it where the greatest need is. That is beginning to unravel in so many ways. And if Dr. Collins were here, Dr. Francis Collins, the head of the NIH, were here, someone who I admire deeply, I will tell you that 2 years ago, we, on the Appropriations Committee, all of the various agencies that come up and are funded through labor, health and education, and human services, come before our committee and make their case. When I served earlier on the Appropriations Committee, the NIH used to come up, and all of the institutes were there. They talked about their groundbreaking research. They talked about where we were going and the interplay amongst the institutes and how that research overlapped with one another, and in a very positive sense. 2 years ago, the committee chairman would not allow Dr. Collins to come and testify before the Appropriations Committee. Not only did we have all of the institutes, we used to bring them in one at a time after that to lay out specifically where they were going, what they were doing, and the groundbreaking efforts that were underway. They would deny the director of the National Institutes of Health a platform to testify before us. I asked the committee chairman, he did, others did, they said no. What I wound up doing, because I have such a high regard for the NIH, is I invited him to my home, and I invited members of Congress to come to listen to him about what was going on at the NIH, so they would have some idea of how important it is for us to be supportive of this effort. One other point to let you know is this year, because of the cuts, the federal cuts, as you know, as sequestration, that's across-the-board cuts to every department. When the Labor, Health, Education, Human Services bill came up to be discussed, that bill never even made it to a subcommittee. because the number was so low. Since 2010, this subcommittee has taken a 17% cut in all of the programs that it undertakes. The Ryan budget had billions of dollars in cuts to the NIH. This bill that didn't see the light of day, though I saw a draft of the bill, had an additional $1.6 billion cut to the NIH. That is criminal in my mind. That is criminal in my mind. We passed the Affordable Care Act. It was one of my proudest moments in the Congress, but equally as proud was I in doubling the NIH budget between 1998 and 2003, something we need to do again. That was done on a bipartisan basis with people like a John Porter, my Republican colleague, Ralph Regula, and others came together with David Obey on the Democratic side, Bill Natcher, others who recognized how valuable research is. And you know, I'm going to enlist your help here. We were never meant to go backward in funding for the NIH. We need your help. I ask for your help. Please, make your voices heard. You have standing. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a researcher. You are. Your voices carry. And they can tell us, they can send a message that unfortunately myself or some of my other colleagues cannot send. That doubling resulted in real dividends. Here at Yale, scientists recently developed a new way to prevent staph infections by genetically manipulating cells. They've identified a single molecule that impacts learning and memory, suggesting new treatments for diseases like Alzheimer's. All of the groundbreaking research I mentioned earlier relies on NIH and NIA funding. If you factor in population growth and inflation, NIH funding right now is over 14% below what it was in 2010. The number of research grants is lower than it has been since 2001. This, as I said, diminishes the capability to fund research, conduct clinical trials, and develop new life-saving treatments. You know better than anyone else that medical breakthroughs just don't happen by some alchemy. They don't. They happen because of hard work and insights of medical researchers and the strong support of the NIH. And it is support that leads to groundbreaking discovery. If we do not support this funding, we would only recognize the tremendous losses years down the road when the benefits of the research is not forthcoming. It would negatively affect the health of every American. The discovery of fundamental knowledge about how we grow, how we age, become ill, may dramatically slow. So, too, may the treatments for the prevention and the treatment of disease. Cutting-edge treatments for cancer, for heart disease, for stroke, for osteoporosis, arthritis. That is what medical research gives us. The gift of good health, the gift of golden years, and the gift of life. It is a gift that I have treasured for over a quarter century since my cancer diagnosis. And it is a gift that every American deserves as they grow older. So I thank you for what you're doing here at the Pepper Center. You're broadening our understanding of aging. And know that I am proud to stand with you and the amazing and the historic work that you all do. You help to improve the health of all Americans, and research into aging, as I said, is something that we should all support and we should rally around. I again enlist your help. Take the opportunity, because you have all kinds of networks of people. And Dean Alpern doesn't have to call me, though I love to talk with him. But you have people and networks all over the country. Those are folks who ought to get to members of Congress and tell them what is at risk, what is at stake. And it isn't for people other than members, because these issues affect all of our lives. We are not immune, members of Congress, for what happens in the lives of older Americans. And we, too, are graying and aging. Thank you. I know it's going to be a great afternoon for all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.